you're never gonna let me down. 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 You your name is alive, forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. In your name is alive, let the shadows flee tonight. Your name cannot be overcome. In your name, God. light up, mountains you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountains you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Rolling over,
God, I'm incredibly thankful that your love is never ending. At times it feels overwhelming, but you chase after us. You just keep coming. You love us so relentlessly in a way that doesn't make sense to us as human beings. Your love is so beyond what we're capable of. And God, I think in a season like this, when there's a lot of chaos going on in the world, and there's a lot of frustration and pointing fingers and hatred being passed around on all sides, it's extra encouraging to recognize that there is a God who loves us far more than anything else. So God, as we dive into your word tonight, as we look to understand our influence and the way that we can carry the love that you have given us out into the world around us and make a radical difference, God, I pray that we would be listening, and that more importantly, we would be truly hearing what it is you want to say to us. We love you, and thank you for loving us. It's in your precious name we pray. Amen. The tea is back. Just so you guys know, November tends to do this to me. It tells my throat that it's time to get scratchy. And so I drink tea, and that keeps me going. So some of y'all will remember this from last year. Just every time I drink tea, pause for me. Just wait. Thank you, yes, the tea applause. And then I'll be right back into it. I promise I won't lose my place more than like once or twice. So we'll keep going. It'll be a good old time. A couple of quick things for you as we get going this evening. One, if you're interested at all, please remember our life groups are now a week away, because we do this every other week, and then we have life groups every other week where we come together and we have some good conversation and mostly make fun of each other. So if you're wanting to remember anything that I say tonight, when that happens, feel free to jot down some notes if you've got something with you to take notes on, or if you even need to type up your notes. I tend to type up my notes. Feel free to take some notes tonight. I'm excited about what we've got going on. A reminder as well. So life groups is next week, and then the 29th is the next Sunday. All right, it would be the 5th Sunday of the month, which is a surprise Sunday. Those don't happen often. But it's also right after Thanksgiving. So we're going to take the 29th off. That's for free. Go and just take an extra long nap and maybe read a good book, watch some Netflix. That's more likely. But relax on the 29th, and then we will be back on the 6th for our next in-person service. But next week for life groups, instead of meeting in host homes, because we've got Thanksgiving coming up and Rona is on the rise, what we're going to do is we're going to have life groups meet here at the church instead of in homes. So you guys will be, it's still the same old thing. You'll be with your people. It'll be a good time, I promise. But we'll be here so we can space people out and wear masks and protect ourselves so that none of you guys get exposed and have to miss Thanksgiving and the turkey and all that goodness. So we'll be here next week for life groups. Now, tonight, we are finishing our two-part series entitled Influencers. Last week, we looked at how we are influenced, the things that are influencing us. And our big kind of point that we wrapped up with was out of a verse in Proverbs. I believe it's in the slides. You can throw it up on the screen there. Boom! Iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another. And basically, I brought a sword up on stage, and me and Josiah dueled. He only had a plastic knife, so it was a bit unfair. I admit that. But we dueled on stage, and we talked about our influences and what our influences are doing to us. And the main thing that we really took away from that was make sure your influences are sharpening you. As opposed to dulling you and hurting you and breaking you down, make sure your influences are sharpening you. Last week, as we talked about that, and as I brought a sword on stage, this was of course an upgrade from the Nerf gun that was 2 weeks prior. I promised that I would bring a tank this week, and that we would meet out in the parking lot, and you would all get to ride the tank, and it would be good. I did not keep my promise. I admit that. That's sad. But you will be surprised to know that tanks are both available in an incredible amount and affordable. And so today I purchased a tank of my own. It's a little smaller. Oh, the barrel's broken apparently. It just shoots straight up. There it is. Now it's fixed. I'm a tank mechanic on the side. That's how I make my real money. But I brought a tank, and that can sit right there. That's about as exciting as it's going to get tonight. I'm sorry that it's over. It's downhill from here. But we have our tank on stage, and it'll just sit there and look good, and that's what you get. Now, tonight we are asking ourselves the question, how are you influencing others? What is it that you're doing to use your influence, and how do we use our influence to shape the world around us and make a difference in the name of Jesus? And I want to start by telling you guys a bit of a story. How many of you guys know who my friend Jordan is? I've talked probably about Jordan occasionally. Longtime friend of mine. Well, I've never brought pictures before. Who wants to see what 7-year-old Andy looks like? I'm adorable. Just a hint. Here we go. Boom! That's me and Jordan, and I'm on the right with the platinum blonde hair, and then Jordan is on the left in his Tigers baseball hat. We're in Detroit there. It's a good time. And then, does anyone here know who Tim Hawkins is? Okay, Josiah's a big fan. He's I'm at every show. Tim Hawkins is a comedian of the Christian variety. Next picture, bam. That is me and Jordan in 5th grade at a Tim Hawkins concert with Tim Hawkins. Yes, I know, I hang with the big leagues and the celebs. So this is me and Jordan, okay? Now, when Jordan and I were kids, we influenced each other quite a bit. And one of the ways that I got around to influencing Jordan is when I think we're about 7 or 8 years old. So basically the picture on the left, we received our first pocket knives. That's right. Back in my day, kids that age had pocket knives. And so we had our pocket knives, and I said to Jordan one day, I said, Jordan, I got a great idea. It's the best idea that you've ever had. I think it's going to be amazing. Thank you. But it's going to be awesome. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go get some sticks, which are plenty available outside. And we're going to take our pocket knives, and we're going to sharpen our sticks into pointy spears. And then we'll do the only thing you do with spears reasonably, and we're going to fight with them. And Jordan said, Andy, I think that's a great idea. I appreciate your influence in my life. Let's do it. And so we took, he didn't say it like that though, 7-year-olds don't talk like that. That'd be super weird. But we took our pocket knives and we sharpened some sticks and we set about to dueling each other until I got stabbed in the eye. Yes. And so my stab mark in the eye, I still have a scar to this day. If you want to see it afterwards, come and ask me. If I look to the right, or it's the right or the left, I can't remember where it is. But it's like this red line that's like inside of my eye that is from when I got stabbed by a stick in like 2nd or 3rd grade. And I got to wear an eye patch to school for 2 weeks and tell people that I got stabbed in the eye, and I felt like I was pretty awesome. Overall, I still think it was a great idea. But it was not. Please don't go home and tell people that that's what I think a good idea is. But I would call that a don't of influence, the thing that I probably should not have influenced Jordan to do. Well, tonight we're going to be looking at the don'ts and the do's of influence. Keeping it real simple, there's 2 don'ts and 2 do's, and you know me, I like to start with the negatives, bum everyone out right at the beginning, and then we go up from there. So, we're going to start with the don'ts of influence tonight, and to do that we're going to be in the book of Matthew, chapter 5, starting in verse 13. So if you've got a Bible on you and you want to follow along, go ahead. Otherwise, I put it on the screen, and the important bits are italicized and everything. You're welcome. But Matthew chapter 5, verse 13, it starts off and it says this: "You are the salt and light of the earth. But if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet." Tea break. Thank you. So, you might be looking at this verse and saying, Andy, this is a verse about salt. Where's the influence at, bud? Well, I promise it's there. Take a look at it. It says, "You are the salt of the earth, but if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored?" You see, we're talking about influence here. We're talking about influence that has been damaged, that's lost its value, that's lost its purpose. The first don't of influence, if you will, is don't let your influence be damaged. When I was in high school, I had a really awesome high school pastor, almost as awesome as me. Some of y'all are chuckling, I know. But his name was Jack, and he was awesome. He was actually the guy who led me to first get to know Jesus when I was a freshman in high school, and then he baptized me when I was a sophomore in high school, and he was the first guy who made me realize that, like, I wanted to do his job, like I wanted to be a high school pastor, and I wanted to hang out with high school students all the time. I probably also thought that because I was in high school and those were all my friends, so I was like, I'm just gonna do this forever. I'll just hang out with my friends all day. But I decided I wanted to do this job because of him. He was a huge impact on my life. And then in the spring of my junior year of high school, I think it was March, we had this big event going on. It was one of our biggest fundraisers of the year. It was a huge deal. It was this giant dodgeball tournament. Believe it or not, we had teams that would fly in from like Canada and California, like dozens of teams from around the country and even from other countries came to compete at this dodgeball tournament. It was a huge fundraiser for our mission trips. It was awesome. And Jack was nowhere to be seen. I mean, I thought this was kind of strange because this was like his job. This was a huge event that the high school that the high schoolers were doing. Massive deal, and he was not to be found. I found out at the end of that event that Jack was kind of being looked at more closely. He was being reviewed, and in the end he was being let go because he had been wrestling with a gambling addiction for years and not told anybody about it. So as a junior in high school, I found out that the man who led me to the Lord and who had baptized me and who had done all this awesome stuff in my life had been gambling his family's money away and had been hiding it and lying about it. And I lost that influence. You see, because of the choices that he was making, because of the things that he was allowing himself to get into, his influence got damaged. And he wasn't able to be the influence that God wanted him to be. Now, I'll tell you this is super exciting. I won't just leave it there. In the end, Jack took what the church came to him and said, they said, hey, look, you need to go through a process with us to heal and restore. We want to help your family. We want to take care of you. And the church actually helped continue to pay him for several months, and they took care of his family for the next couple years and really helped him through a process of recovery. And a couple years after that all went down, and he had gone through all this process, and he had submitted to all those different things that the church had done, he was recovered, and the church actually then recommended him to another church nearby and said, you know what, this guy made a big mistake, and he had some things happen, but he went through this process with us, and he submitted to that, and he asked for forgiveness, and he's recovered now, and we think he would do a great job. And he's been at that church ever since for like the past several years. So all that to say that our influence being damaged doesn't end things. There's always redemption. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. God is always capable of restoring us. But it hurts. It has a big impact. It can hurt a lot of people when we allow our influence to be damaged by the choices that we make and the things that we do. The second don't of influence. Next verse, we're going to be in 14 and 15 now. It says this, you are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Again, Andy, this is a verse about light. We're talking about influence. I promise it's there. Take a look at it. It says, you are the light of the world. And it says, a city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand that gives light to all in the house. The second don't of influence that we're going to be talking about tonight is don't let your influence be hidden. It says, look, like a city on a hill can't be hidden from anything. I mean, it's there, it's visible. The same way people don't like go and light a candle or a lamp and then just like put it under something and they're like, ha, you can't light anything now, lamp. You know, like that would be just really weird to do, and you'd be wasting oil, and a lot of people, I'm sure, would get upset. You might light the basket on fire, depending on how big your candle is. But it says, hey, don't let your influence be hidden. Don't let your light be hidden for different things. You might be asking, Andy, what does that mean? Like, should I not wear camo when I go to school? You know, how am I supposed to handle this? How is it that I'm supposed to not let my influence be hidden? Well, I think there are two things that often hide our influence, that prevent our influence and the things that God wants to do through us from happening. And the first one is something I think we're all very familiar with, is busyness. How many of you guys would say you're busy? Like, even in Rona, you're pretty busy. Like, you've got some things going on. Yeah, so busyness. Andy, I would love to go and talk to that person. I would love to go make friends with them and tell them about Jesus and, get to know them. But there are a lot of shows that need watched right now. And I'm the main watcher, so it's kind of my job. I got to be there. The season's not over at the end of this week, I'm going to hear from my boss, and it's a whole thing. But we're busy with stuff. Maybe it's schoolwork or work. I've got my job. I don't have time to read or to get to know God better. I've got work, and I've got homework to do, and I've got school. Now, hear me out. I'm not saying don't do your homework. All right, don't go home and be like, Andy said I don't have to do my homework because it's going to hide my influence. That is not what I'm saying tonight. All right, don't go home and do that, please. I don't want to be fired. But our busyness can often hide our influence. The things that we allow to cloud our time and to cloud our schedules can hide our ability to go out and do things that are truly important and to influence people in an awesome way. The second thing, though, and I think this is another really common one that often hides our influence, is fear. Yes. I really want to go and make some friends at my school and talk to them and have, tell them ask them if I could pray for them or have a meaningful conversation with them. I'd love to go and invite them to Impact or whatever. But man, what if they laugh at me and tell me I have a big nose, or something, I don't know. What if they tell me I'm lame and that they don't want to do that? And then I cry a lot about it. What am I going to do? Our fear. I'm not eloquent enough. I'm not good at talking and no one thinks I'm cool anyway, so like I probably shouldn't do that. Like I'm afraid of going and having those conversations. I'm scared. Fear can hide our influence. But we can't let those things hide our influence. God's got too much for us to do, and so now we get to the good part. Let's talk about the do's of influence. The first do of influence is this. It comes out of 1 Peter chapter 3. I'm going to just read it on the screen so I don't have to flip around. It says this, 1 Peter 3:15. But in your hearts, honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect. Guys, the first do of influence is be ready. Be ready to be an influence. Having the right influences in our lives does this. It says, hey, be ready to give an answer for the hope that you have. Be ready to talk to people about this thing that you have, this hope that's inside of you, this peace that's inside of you. Be ready to go and tell people about that. Well, how do I get ready? Well, learn about it. Pick up God's big old book and read about it. Have those meaningful conversations with friends and family members and your leaders that want to talk to you about Jesus and what he can do in your life and what he is doing in your life. Be ready to know why it is that you have this awesome hope. Be ready to use your influence. The cool thing is, when we have those right influences in our lives, when we allow ourselves to be influenced in the right way, it starts to change our heart. If you go back to the verse real quick, it says, be ready to give a reason for the hope you have, yet do it with gentleness and respect. We have a lot of people in our world right now who are trying to influence each other, right? How many of them have you all witnessed are doing it with gentleness and respect? Not many. Doesn't matter what even you're trying to influence people to do. If you influence them with gentleness and respect, they're already going to be like, something's different about this dude. You know, like there's something funky going on right now. But when our hearts are in the right place, when we're having those right influences in our lives and we're readying ourselves to give a reason for the hope that we have, when we're readying ourselves to go and be an influence, and it changes our hearts, already we begin to have an influence. Just by being people who go to others with gentleness and respect, to have good conversations and to care about them and to be kind with our words, just by doing that, we already begin to influence people. You don't even have to have the whole Bible memorized to do that. You go and are nice to people and you already are having an influence on them. You're already going counterculture to the world that we have outside every single day. I think that's pretty neat. That it's that easy to just be ready and go and have an influence. The second do, and this is one I'm super passionate about, guys, is out of 1 Timothy chapter 4. You can skip the up there. Is the next verse. It says this: let no one despise you for your youth. Let no one look down on you because you're young. But set the believers an example in speech and conduct and love and faith and purity. Hold on. Thank you. I could just feel myself starting to get dry, and then you do like the lip smacking thing. You know what I'm talking about, where your mouth makes noise every time you talk, and that's gross. So we got to drink the tea. Let no one despise you for your youth, but set the believers an example in all these different ways. Guys, this one is huge to me because it's a really big part of why I'm a youth pastor. I love that you guys, not even according to me or anybody else, but according to God himself, that you guys have the ability to be an incredible influence on the people around you. You guys have the ability to be used by God for really big things. I want to reveal something that some of you know, but some of you don't. I've been pestered about this since I arrived here because I've not been forthright about it. But when I first came to CCC, I was 22. I'm a whole year older than that now, so I'm getting old at 23. But I was young coming here, right? And there were a lot of churches that I talked to and applied to and had interactions with that were like, oh my gosh, he's basically a high schooler. What are we going to do with him? You know, we don't want this guy. And then thankfully I found my way here. I've been to be here for a year and get to know you guys, and I love what I do. There's nothing else I would rather be doing right now than this right here. But a lot of people looked at who I was and how young I was, and they were like, I really don't know. But instead, we have an awesome team here who looked at me and said, you know what? I think this is the person that God has for us. It doesn't matter that he's kind of young. Like God's going to use him in a cool way. Guys, I believe the same exact thing about each and every one of you guys. There's nothing stopping you from being an awesome influence on the people around you. The second do of influence is be bold with your influence. Be bold with your influence. If you guys were to go home right now, and you can, and say, hey, Mom and Dad, I think that we ought to pray together more as a family. One, they might have a heart attack. So be ready for that. But two, they're going to be like, whoa, are you serious? Yeah. I think it'd be really cool if we went to church together more or watch the services online. And hey, I'd like to read the Bible as a family and have discussions about it and talk about faith with each other. They might pass out. I don't know, you might get a free evening all to yourself just from this conversation. But if you were to go home and do that, there's nothing stopping you. You can go into your family, into your friend groups, and be bold with your influence. And here's the cool thing. Go back to that verse. If anyone looks down on you because you're young, says, hey, slow down there, champ. Calm down, bud. One of those words that just makes you mad when you hear it. All right, there's sport, calm down there, don't get ahead of yourself. Anyone who looks down on you because you're young and you want to be an influence, an example in your faith, they're wrong, not you. If there's people in your life who are looking down on you for your age, for desiring to grow in your faith and be an example for other people of what an awesome faith looks like, they're wrong. Because God's got something awesome for you. Now, what I am not saying, I feel like I have to clarify this every once in a while, is do not go home and be like, Mom and Dad, I'm bold with my influence, and you can't look down on me because I'm young, so I'm going to stay until 2 in the morning and eat nothing but Doritos and drink Mountain Dew. No, that is not what this verse is saying at all. There are plenty of verses about respecting your elders and obeying your parents. So don't go home and try that, because if I get a phone call, you're going to get a text from me. And then we'll talk about this verse, and they can watch it online. They can go on YouTube and be like, Andy didn't really say that they could stay until 2 in the morning, did he? No, I did not. But you can go home and be bold with your influence, and be bold about your faith. My friend Jordan, so the pictures I showed you were when we were very young. Here's a more recent picture of us. This is still very old. That's a non-bearded me on the left there, and Jordan with what is almost a beard on his chin. We're very cool, I know, thank you. But this was taken several years ago, when basically a few weeks after I got a very hard phone call from Jordan. I've talked a little bit about this with you guys before. You see, Jordan and I were best friends all through school, and we grew up together, and we had this awesome relationship. And then our sophomore year in high school, Jordan moved to Japan, where his dad was working for a company. And he spent 3 years in Japan and kind of fell in with the wrong crowd. And in Japan, a lot of stuff is legal when you're really young that isn't legal in the United States. And so he just got into a ton of crazy stuff. And then he came back to the U.S. for college. And during his very first year of college, he got caught by the police with a bunch of drugs in his room. The police raided his room in the middle of the night, and because they had found out he had been dealing drugs all over campus and was doing all this stuff. And he got caught with all these things. And so he called me in tears after that happened. Was like, Andy, I've got all these criminal charges on me, and I don't know what's going to happen. I think I'm going to go to jail. I don't know what to do. And so he got permission to come back up to Michigan a little while after that while the court case was going on. And we took this picture. It's one of only 3 pictures I have with my friend Jordan. The 3 pictures you've seen tonight are the only 3 pictures I could find of me and Jordan. We don't take pictures, we just live and stab each other with sticks. But this picture was taken in our car, we were driving up north to spend a few days together to just talk about what had been going on and to catch up. And we had to pull off on the side of the road a little while after this picture was taken because we were both crying uncontrollably and we couldn't drive. And we sat on the side of the highway for almost an hour and just talked about what God had been doing in my life since I had last seen him. And how he had changed me and how my life was different now and the hope and the peace that I had. That same hope that I was ready to give a reason for. Like, hey, I've got a reason for the hope that I have. And that weekend, we talked for hours and hours and hours about who God is and what he wants for each and every one of us. And Jordan ended up accepting Jesus as his Savior that weekend. He's now a music producer and a soundtrack designer down in Florida. He designs the soundtrack for games like Need for Speed and Battlefield 5 and Madden 2020. Like that, he works on those games and does some really cool stuff. He does music production for people with millions of listeners on Spotify. I mean, it's super cool. But he uses all of that influence for Jesus. And it's awesome to see. Guys, there's no limit to what God can do with your influence, even when you're young. That big final point I want to leave you guys with tonight is this. It comes out of Matthew 5, verse 16. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. Guys, your influence glorifies God. When you don't let your influence be damaged, when you don't let your influence be hidden, and when you're ready and bold with your influence, it glorifies God in a really big way. And you might find yourself being used to change people's lives. And that's pretty cool. So guys, that's my challenge and my heart for you. I believe so wholeheartedly that you guys are capable of changing the world. I mean that. Go out. Be an influence. Because God's got something awesome for you. Now, a couple quick things as we wrap up. One way you can start to build your influence and be ready to influence and be trained up to influence is, how many of you guys remember CIA? You know what CIA is? CIA is our student leadership team. That's the people who kind of help us from the student side of things, get to run things and help us figure out ideas for stuff, and we spend a little extra time diving deeper together. It's going to look a little different this year, but we're starting it back up again. So if you are all interested in growing a little more, diving a little deeper, spending some extra time on this stuff, if you're interested at all, and after life groups, next week, we're going to meet right afterwards and chat for a little bit about what CIA is going to look like this year. It's not a commitment. If you want to come and just see, hey, like that kind of sounds like something I might be interested in, and then come on out. Anyone is welcome. But if you're interested in that at all, please come next week and we'll chat afterwards. And if you can't make it, let me know. If you're interested but you can't make it next week, that's okay. Just let me know and we'll talk about it. And then also, a quick thing, reminder, with all the COVID stuff on the rise and everything that's going crazy, you can always Zoom or FaceTime or whatever into life groups. And we have Instagram and YouTube available for our services. So if there's any point where you're like, hey, I shouldn't be around people, or maybe you've been exposed or whatever, stay home and remind your leader, hey, I want to Zoom in this week because I'm not going to be able to come in person, and they'll make sure that they've got a Zoom ready for you. Sound good?